Hi, I'm Kirk Bevins, and you're listening to the weekly Dartscast 177.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and we said last week we might try and squeeze in an episode during the Grand Slam this week, and here we are. Players just finished in Wolverhampton. The quarter-final lineup is now complete for the Grand Slam, and joining me for the next 15 or 20 minutes to reflect on the Grand Slam so far is, of course, my co-host, darts statistician, the darts driver king, Burton, DeWitt. How are you doing?
I am doing just fine, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Glad to sneak in a bonus episode for you guys this week, and let's get straight into it. We're going to start off by looking back at tonight's session, last night's session. When you're listening to this, we've had Nathan Aspinall, Alan Suter, Michael van Gerwen and Luke Humphries secure the last four spots in the quarterfinals over the weekend coming up. And we've got to start with that Michael van Gerwen, Josh Rock game at a first competitive meeting between the two. It was the headline act tonight, and it certainly didn't disappoint. What was your take on that game and everything else that we saw tonight?
I mean, it's one of the best matches we've ever seen on that stage, and I don't think that's in any way an exaggeration. Josh Rock did not miss a meaningful double in that match. He barely put a dart wrong in that match. He had a couple of loose visits at crucial times in the last leg. He only scored 59. None of the darts were all that good from 207, which left him with 148 as opposed to something smaller. He didn't give a good go at the 130 a couple legs earlier, right after he got broken, when he had a chance to get back into it. And a couple other visits like that on setup shots, but that's about it. That's about it over the course of the entire match. Whenever he had to hit a double, he did. Whenever he had to hit a one treble visit, he had a one or two or three treble visit. And even after getting broken in the first leg, he immediately broke back with a 9-darter. He didn't do anything wrong. And that's why he averaged in the end nearly 104. And that's why he pushed an on-song Michael van Gerwen 18 legs and forced MVG to play at or near his best for much of the match. And MVG said as much in the post-match interview. We don't hear that often. But MVG knew he played well in a match that went 18 legs. And MVG said, yeah, I played well. I had to play at my best in order to win that match. I had to stay at my game, and I had to keep playing well, else I would have lost, because Josh Rock is the real deal. And there's been very few people in history that we've seen Michael van Gerwen give unqualified praise to, and he did to Josh Rock. Back 5-6 years ago, he would to Gary Anderson when Gary Anderson played his best. Obviously, earlier in his career, Phil Taylor. But that's earlier in Van Gerwen's career. I mean, he did it to Phil, said that to Phil Taylor. But that's about it. There's really not been. There's been matches where MVG has graciously congratulated his opponent, but he didn't play his best. Or even when he won, he didn't play his best, but he figured out how to get over the line. And there was none of that in this. MVG was pushed almost to a last leg decider. He only managed to break Josh Rock twice in the course of the match. He had to hit three dart out shots in that match, and almost all of them had to go. He had to play really well to beat Josh Rock, and even still only did barely. It was a phenomenal performance by both of them. And it's a match that we will remember as one of the best matches ever at the Grand Slam of Darts, and very possibly as our match of the year. As far as the other matches on Thursday night, how they went, I mean, they were all fairly competitive. Jermaine Wadamena, a couple times it looked like he might make a mini run to get back into it, but Nathan Aspinall was just the better player in there. But again, it's good to see Jermaine Wadamena getting back to form. We haven't seen him play well since really the start of the pandemic. There's been some signs over the last few months as he's had some deep runs on the floor. He's in the conversation for the match play and next year as things currently stand. So it looks like he's getting back, but Nathan Aspinall is just a bit too much for him. The other two matches, though, were really good. Johnny Clayton nearly had a great comeback against Alan Suter after Alan Suter showed some fragility as he neared the finishing line. But in what was really a fairly high quality match, and one that kept twisting and turning. Whenever Alan Suter looked like he had broken and taken an insurmountable lead, Johnny Clayton broke right back. That was a good match. And Johnny Clayton's still not playing at that level he was last year. But boy, Alan Suter's really come back on in the last few months. And that's why he's almost in the top 32. And in the last match, Ross Smith didn't get going until it was a bit too late. Obviously, there was that leg where he was well ahead and missed God knows how many darts at double, kept busting on double one. That leg in the end was the turning point, because if he had won that leg instead of he would have, well, at the very least been going to last leg decider. Luke Humphries would have had to hold in the 18th leg just to get there. Ross Smith gave Luke Humphries too many chances. Luke Humphries also tried to give Ross Smith too many chances as well. It was a good match, but both of them, Ross Smith is going to be disappointed, and Luke Humphries is going to know that he needs to up his game. And, well, he can up his game if he's going to go further in this tournament. But Luke Humphries is still there searching for that first major title.
Yeah, we've certainly been treated to a great night of darts, haven't we? And starting off with that Michael van Gerwen Josh Rock game, Michael averaging 107, Josh 103 over those 18 legs of darts. And we've been wary, I guess, of bigging up Josh Rock too much, because it is easily done when you've got a new player that comes onto the scene, especially a young player. Josh only being 21, that the hype machine starts rolling, and you think, is the hype too much? Is it warranted? Well, I think after tonight, if you weren't convinced by Josh Rock, you have to be now. And you think back to this time last year, not many people had heard of Josh Rock in darts. He had that final this time last year in the Irish Classic, got to the quarterfinals of the Irish Open that weekend. He'd never played in a PDC event, not even the development tour. Goes to Q School, start of this year, wins a tour card on the final day, and the action that he's got as well. Rod Studway, Mardle both spoke about it in commentary as well. It is just so good, isn't it? And we saw at the start of that game, the 180 to lead 24. Michael van Gerwen takes out 1-2-4 on the ball to break, kicks off with a 180. Josh Rock in the biggest game of his career so far, and there's probably going to be bigger ones, you'd have to say, but hits that 9-dart leg, and yeah, it was a special moment, wasn't it? And the celebration, and I think standing in front of Michael van Gerwen, having just broken back in a game like that, he took a moment to let it sink in a little bit. I know he injured himself, I think, in the celebrations as well. But yeah, it was just a great moment for him. And yeah, I guess going forward now as well, we're going to see what else he can go on to achieve, because there is still the Players' Championship finals and the big one, the World Championship. And we've just seen him push the Player of the Year, one of the best players ever, almost all the way, the first time they've ever played each other on the big stage. So yeah, a lot of potential for Josh Rock going forward for sure. And the other players that got through tonight, of course, Nathan Aspinall, I don't think he's hit top gear just yet in this tournament, but did what he had to do, got that good lead against Jermaine Wattamina 5-1. Jermaine came back at him a little bit there, but managed to get over the line. Both players were, I think, giving themselves or giving the opponent chances, but Nathan Aspinall just a little bit more clinical, and that's 3 quarterfinals for him in the last 4 majors. The first time that he's done that since that breakthrough he had back end of 2018 going into 2019. So he's getting himself in these positions again in the major tournaments. And Alan Suter, well, this is new ground for him. First time that he's got to a quarterfinal of a major, and really should be going into the quarterfinals still unbeaten, because he did miss those 6-match starts against Peter Wright. It meant he had that nervous wait while Peter Wright and Nathan Aspinall were playing, that the fate was out of his hands, but he got through. And yeah, a really good performance to knock out Johnny Clayton, who was the Player of the Year last year, as you say, not hit those heights this year so far. And the last of the players to get through, Luke Humphries, getting the better of Ross Smith again, another close game, going 10-8. But yeah, I think that is an important win for Luke Humphries. He's provisionally up to number 5 in the world right now, and yeah, we could have a Michael Smith, Luke Humphries for Team England next year in the World Cup. But for him now, it's about the Grand Slam and seeing if he can get over that line and get that first major and follow what Ross Smith done only a few weeks ago.
Well, we talked about the action that just now happened tonight. Let's go back a day to Wednesday, as Raymond van Barneveld continues to roll back the years, not just topping the group in the group stage, but then getting through, coming from behind after a slow start against Simon Whitlock to make the quarterfinal for the first time in 6 years at the Grand Slam. What are your thoughts on that and the other games on Wednesday night?
Well, Wednesday night, that is my league darts, so I did miss watching Wednesday's games live, but I did catch the replay of them earlier today. And that Raymond van Barneveld Simon Whitlock game, I put a tweet up as well after watching it. It was just a joy to watch, and I did say it's got to be in the hat for match of the year, but probably been usurped already by that Josh Rock Michael van Gerwen game already. And yeah, that is the sign of a good tournament, I guess, a bit like the World Championships last year, when after each day we were getting games that were better in the games the previous day. But yeah, you go back to the first few years of the Grand Slam, 2007, only 2 players from that lineup are in the field 15 years on, Michael van Gerwen and Raymond van Barneveld, and then the next year, 2008, those two, plus Simon Whitlock, and two of them both in their 50s, battling out and serving up a really enjoyable, high-quality game over those 18 legs. And again, it's a game that could have gone all the way to that 19th leg, but Barney stepping in, taking out the 81 on the ball, and a clutch finish. And really, that's what he's been doing the whole tournament. Okay, the first game, there was a lot of missed doubles. Him and Dave Chisnell both averaged in the low 90s, but won that game. The next game, the very next day against Gerwen Price, who averaged 105, Barney 3-1 down, 4-3 down, comes back and wins that one, gets one a double and takes it to get that win. And the third game was a bit of a dead rubber. Barney was already through, but puts in that 97 average, a 5-0 win against Ted Evitts. And yeah, the way he closed out the game against Simon Whitlock, the 12 darter on the ball, Simon Whitlock had just missed double five for, I think it was a 130 to take it all the way. And it has been 10 years since Barney won the Grand Slam, and that was a first TV title in the PDC for about 5 years. And considering he's took a year out, retired, and this is his second year back, and he had some success last year getting that title on the floor. And I think we said about it last week or the week before, we've not really spoken about Raymond van Barneveld this year, but we'll come on to our picks later to see if we can keep this run going. But I think we've seen enough this week to say that his performances on the big stage, he can extend his career at the professional level for maybe a lot longer than he thought a few years ago. And just lastly, touching on the last three players to come through, Gerwen Price, he's going to go up against Barney, a rematch of that group game tonight when you're listening to this. And I put a tweet out as well after Dave Chisnell missed those 2-match darts to knock him out of the tournament in the group stage, was that the rest of the field's chance to get Gerwen Price out of this tournament. Well, Danny Noppert was in a good position, 7-4, 8-6 up, I think, in that game on Wednesday night, and Gerwen Price coming back to win it 10-8. So, yeah, he looks like he's a player that he's going to take some stopping this week. And then we've got Michael Smith and Joe Cullen, who, again, it's going to be a rematch of the group stage. But those two players both getting through. Michael Smith, as we know, your tip to win this tournament, and he's in the mix again. He's in the final few days of an event, the quarterfinal stage. And Joe Cullen, probably a more comfortable win than we thought against Dirk van Dijvenbode 10-4, but those two going up against each other. And yeah, first 16 legs, that is a game on Friday I'm looking forward to seeing. And if both players bring their A game up, I think we're in for a treat for that one.
Well, I hope for your sake that Costompe is not listening to this week's episode, because he's going to be aghast that you forgot that Barney won a televised title in 2010, just 2 years before that at the World Cup alongside your favorite player. But I'll let that slide. But first, obviously, that was his first singles title in 5 years. That one, shocking forgetting about Costompe's title. Who are you?
That was all Co. I forgot Barney was playing with him. I was just watching Co the whole tournament.
well, but that aside, yeah, it's been a long time between drinks yet again for Barney, because he hasn't won a televised title now for 8 years outside of pairs events in the World Cup. And I don't think he's playing at the level that you would expect him to go and win the title, but there's no reason the way he's playing right now that he can't go further. He's already beaten Gerwen Price once, and Gerwen Price has looked beatable. I mean, he had to be nearly perfect on the doubles to come back and beat Danny Noppert in the last 16. And he's looked vulnerable at times, and Raymond van Barneveld looks like he's enjoying himself and enjoying darts again, which is something even when he was best, it didn't look like he was enjoying darts per se. That does make him dangerous in ways that he's not been, because he's much more relaxed, much more accepting of the result and just enjoying what's going on. And, you look back when he beat Michael van Gerwen in that famous match at the World Championship 6 years ago in the last 16, a match that there was no expectations on him, and he just went out and played, and we saw what he can do. Raymond van Barneveld might not be averaging that 105, 106 anymore, but he can still average at or about the ton, even in a longer form match. And if he's just enjoying it, one, it's fun to watch, and two, it does make him a threat to beat almost everyone in this field. And that's why he beat a injured but on form Simon Whitlock coming from behind. As far as the other matches, I mentioned Gerwen Price. I mean, It wasn't the same type of comeback as Barney had against Whitlock, but he was still behind most of the match. And 8 out of 11 on the doubles, 10 out of 13 on the doubles in that match for Gezi, solidifying his spot as the world number one, keeping his undefeated record in this venue over the last 4 years, because the 1 year he lost was the year it wasn't played in Wolverhampton. That sets up a juicy quarterfinal. We'll come on to our picks later. Michael Smith, as you mentioned, still in with every chance to win that first major. I'm still sticking with him, so okay, I gave away one of my tips, but beat Rob Cross in a match that was nervy at times, but Michael Smith always looked the better player, and in the end he was. And Joe Cullen Dirk van Dijvenbode didn't show up. A rare time over the past 12 months where Dirk van Dijvenbode did not play anywhere near his best game. I'm not worried for him. It was just one of those days, it seemed. He still seems every bit the player who's on the cusp of winning that first major and knows that he is and will get there. It just wasn't his day. And for Joe Cullen, he's now into the quarterfinals. Might not be playing at his best, but again, it's such a change from the Joe Cullen of just a couple years ago when he didn't have a B game and often didn't have a C game. He has a B game now. He has a C game, and he knows how to win with it. And that's what he did against Dirk van Dijvenbode. That's what he did most of the Premier League campaign. It's a much more mature Joe Cullen. And that was just another mature performance from a player who is now a major champion and Premier League runner-up.
Right, we're going to get on to our picks for the Grand Slam in a moment, but we'll just touch on some news that we had from the PDC during the Grand Slam this week, and that is the order of play for next week's Players' Championship finals. That has been confirmed. We've got a big one session on the Friday as opposed to the two sessions, and we know which players are going to be playing on the main stage, which players are going to be playing on the second stage. And the big news as well, Peter Wright, the defending champion, pulling out of the tournament. What did you make of all the news about next week's event?
Yeah, it's a one event where this, makes sense because it is played at the Holiday Park in Minehead, and you're there in the venue for most people are going to be there for the entire weekend. And it's not like an arena per se where you enter, stay for a few hours and then leave. You're still in the area the entire time. So having one session, I guess that makes sense. And they're also selling tickets for the entire day anyway. If that's what ITV want, if that's what worked best for television, it's not like the ticket money is going to be any different. And that's what, you're not also buying a particular seat or particular table. You buy your entry and you can go between the two stages. You can go, if it's the UK Open, you go between, 3 different rooms. Here it's just 2 different rooms. So if this is what worked for ITV's schedule, it makes sense. And it's, good to have a darting bonanza and just get all those matches, play through them, and enjoy them. As far as Peter Wright, obviously that was big news in the Grand Slam. His wife in hospital, hoping for the best. But Peter Wright has to do what's best for his family, and it makes sense that he's going to withdraw to spend the time with his wife and make sure that she's recovering well. Obviously, though, it is going to be a blow for his World Championship preparation. He won the Premier League. He won the Players' Championship finals last year, and that set him up to go and win the World Championship, defending not the title, but defending the money he had won because he had won it 2 years earlier. He's not going to get that chance to play in the Players' Championship final. He didn't get past the group stage. Obviously, his mind was elsewhere, and that made a difference. And now he's going to go into the World Championships without that match sharpness, which I think he needed. He was finally coming back into some form the last few months and finally looking like the player that has won 2 of the last 3 World Championships. But now he's going to come in without that match sharpness. Obviously, he has to do what's right for him and his family, and we can't criticize that decision at all. But it is going to likely make him more vulnerable than he would like at the World Championships. But we'll see. He's won titles before out of nowhere, and he's come in playing well and gone out first round, second round out of nowhere. We'll see how he does at the World Championships, but I feel like this is not going to do well for him for his World Championship defense, even though it's obviously the only correct decision for him.
Agreed with that. It was sad to hear Peter pulling out the tournament, and as you say, we send our best wishes to his wife, Jo, who's in hospital at the moment, and I think you could see that on stage as well. Peter Wright wasn't quite himself, and quite rightly his wife's health was on his mind, and Jo usually says to him, go on and play, and they've decided this time to take some time off and miss Minehead next week, and a title that he won last year for the first time. But the next time we do see Peter Wright, it will be on that opening night at Ali Pali, as he always is. The defending champion plays on that first night of the tournament. So, yeah, still a month until the big one. But, yeah, we do send our best wishes to Joe. And I guess you could say that the player that's made the most of that now is Gerwen van Veen. He finished 65th on the Players' Championship Order of Merit. He now steps in to play Ross Smith, and he caught the eye of that run to the final. I think it was the second to last Players' Championship where he played Gerwen Price in the final. So it's a big opportunity for him, someone without a tour card, to play in a major for the first time. And as far as the scheduling, I think we had Chris Mason on the show a few weeks ago, and he mentioned about there was going to be a change to the schedule this year, and I think it is mainly due to the World Cup and the small matter of England against the USA, and we expect ITV to refer to it often as the weekly Dartscast derby, but ITV I think are running this one session instead of two on the Friday. They want to get an early start time, 10:30 in the morning, and to get finished before that game. And I think that's going to be a test for the players, especially those who are first up on the main stage and the second stage on that Friday morning, and the fans as well. Good luck to everyone involved is all I can say for that. But we've got 14 games on the main stage, 18 games are going to be on stage 2, and I think ITV probably just being a little bit cautious there, wanting to be off there before the England USA game. But we might see one game move up onto the main stage, and everyone's going to be able to see all the games because stage 2 they're shown on PDC TV. But there are some players that you probably wouldn't have expected to see on the second stage. Johnny Clayton, who we spoke about earlier, Gary Anderson. Not often we see Gary Anderson on the second stage at Minehead. I remember being at Minehead watching Michael van Gerwen against Rob Cross, the Riley's qualifier at the time, on the main stage, and over on stage 2, another of the Riley's qualifiers, Barry Lynn, was beating Gary Anderson. That was a crazy session that afternoon. But yeah, Gary Anderson going back to that stage 2, and it is going to be a long session next Friday. If you are in it for the long haul from Dart 1 to the end, then fair play to you, and that is a lot of darts to enjoy, but I'm sure our listeners can do it.
And we'll be back, of course, next week to decide whether soccer or football will come home. We'll make that next week, but we still need to make some picks this week because it's quarterfinal prediction time for the Grand Slam of Darts. I've already forgot which event we're in. So 4 matches. What are your predictions, and are you still sticking with your predicted winner of Gezi to lift the title?
Yeah, you've already said you're sticking with your predicted winner before the tournament, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to stick with Gerwen Price. So working from the top to the bottom of the quarterfinals, Raymond van Barneveld against Gerwen Price. He's already got a win against the world number 1 in this tournament. That was only first to 5 legs. This is a much longer format, first to 16, and I think this is going to be a test for Barney to see if he can go that long at high standard. Of course, we've seen throughout the years before he retired that yes, he could produce that level, that top class level over a long format. You've only got to go to that ridiculous World Championship semi-final with him and Michael van Gerwen when he averaged 109, the highest losing average in a World Championship game. So we know that he's got it in the locker. If he can pull it out on this occasion, then he is going to give Gerwen Price a game. And as I mentioned earlier, Gerwen Price, he's dodged a few bullets so far in this tournament, but it is a venue that he's got an impeccable record when it comes to knockout games, and I do think he'll pull away at some point. So I'm going to go Gerwen Price to win it around 16-9, 16-10 for that one. Next game, Michael Smith, Joe Cullen. The record between them is fairly close as far as TV games, knockout games, that is. Michael Smith had Joe Cullen's number twice last year, the UK Open and the Grand Slam, the round before this one in the last 16. Both players, it's a big opportunity to get through to that final day, the Sunday. You backed Michael Smith before the tournament to win that first major title, and I think he's going to get a step closer. I'm going to go with Michael Smith to win that one, 16-13, probably going to be one of the closer quarterfinals that we've got here. And Saturday's quarterfinals, Nathan Aspinall, Alan Suter. If you'd have said before the tournament Johnny Clayton, Peter Wright weren't going to be involved in this game, you probably would have been a little bit surprised. But Nathan Aspinall beat Peter Wright. Alan Suter should have beaten Peter Wright, but he has knocked out Johnny Clayton. So they've both done damage to themselves in this tournament, knocking out the 2 seeds. And Alan Suter, someone that we spoke a lot about last year when he won his tour card at Q School and caught the eye with some deep runs in the majors, the UK Open, the World Championship. We've not talked about him a lot this year, but he's come through the qualifiers and he's playing pretty well so far. So I think he'll give Nathan Aspinall a game. I'm going to go that one to go pretty close as well, but I'm going to go with the the more experienced man when it comes to these sort of games, Nathan Aspinall, to win it 16-13. And my final quarterfinal, Michael van Gerwen, Luke Humphries. This is a game I'm really looking forward to, and they've met quite a few times on stage in the last few years. You've got that UK Open semi-final last year when Luke Humphries really did announce himself in these major events, that 107 average to Michael van Gerwen's 106, winning that one 11-5. And they've had a few meetings on the Euro Tour, the Masters this year as well. And twice in this tournament, we've seen players throw everything at Michael van Gerwen. Ross Smith in the group stage did enough to win it. Josh Rock tonight, when we're talking, got a lot of plaudits for how he performed, but it wasn't quite enough to beat Michael. And as you pointed out, Michael said afterwards, that's the best he's played. That's what he said himself after. And if he's finding those levels and he's got all those major titles in the bank already this year, that the confidence, you'd imagine, is going to be high. And it'll be high for Luke Humphries as well, given the year that he's had. But I think this one, he's going to go with Michael van Gerwen. I'm going to go him to edge it 16-12. And as far as my final prediction, I'm going to go with it being a Gerwen Price Michael van Gerwen final, and I think Gerwen Price is going to get revenge for losing that match play final. I think we're going to see Gerwen Price, if this was the tournament where he got that first ever win against Michael van Gerwen, went on to win his first major, and both these players are on 3 Grand Slam titles, and he's going to be Gerwen Price that's going to be the first of those 2 players to get to 4. I'm going to go Gerwen Price to retain the Grand Slam on Sunday.
We'll see how wrong you are.
Very.
I won't say that you're fully wrong, because I think I am going to agree that Gerwen Price is going to get the win over Raymond van Barneveld. It's been almost 5 years since Barney's played a match that was longer than best out of 21 legs. This match, of course, is going to be best out of 31. And, obviously it's tough to convert set play to leg play, but I'd consider a first or a best out of 5 set match to be about that best out of 21 leg distance. So the last time he went beyond best out of 21 legs was back in the quarterfinals of the 2018 World Championship. We lost the last set decider to MVG. So we're talking nearly 5 years since he's played a match that is even remotely close to this length, let alone one that's this length or longer. So we don't know how he's going to hold up over the longer format. And we know Gerwen Price can and will sustain his level and probably improve over the course of the match. I think Barney's playing well, and it would not surprise me if he's able to keep up at that near ton level over 31 legs, but I'm not going to predict him to do it. I'm going to go Gezi to win it, maybe 16-11, 16-12, pulling away late. But a respectable performance from a resurgent Raymond van Barneveld. Reddy said I'm sticking with Michael Smith to win the title, so I'm going to pick him to beat Joe Cullen. I'm going to go that one to be like 16-10. Nathan Aspinall, Alan Suter's one where I really am tempted to pick Suter. He's closing in the top 32 now. He's been playing really well the last few months after a slow start to the year, but Nathan Aspinall is playing really, really well all year long. And I think just 1, the distance, 2, the experience, and 3, just the overall that he is a better player. No offense to Alan Suter, who's a very good player. Nathan Aspinall is a great player. I think Nathan Aspinall is going to get the better of what will be a surprisingly tight and back and forth match. I could see that one going the distance, but I'll go 16-14. And then lastly, Michael van Gerwen, Luke Humphries. Oh, it is tough to pick against Michael van Gerwen off of that performance. Over the last couple of years, it would be easy to pick against him because he could not string 2 performances of a high standard back-to-back, and that's why he barely won anything in the last couple of years. But he has been doing that this year. I don't know if he's going to play at that same standard, but he very well might need to because I think Luke Humphries will improve, but I think he'll come close. I'm going to go 16-11, but it's a match that's going to be closer than that scoreline says. I think Luke Humphries is going to average north of a ton. He's going to make MVG hit, but MVG is going to hit. I do think MVG gets to the final, but it is Michael Smith who wins the title in the end for his first major. Anything else this week?
Well, as always, just to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Dartwolf, for their support. If you want more Dynamite Darts content, head on over to dartwolf.tv. Give Dartwolf a follow on Twitter at Dartwolf180. And thanks to everyone for listening. We'll be back next week with a review of the Grand Slam, the whole tournament, looking ahead to the Players' Championship finals, finding out if my prediction was correct with Gerwen Price, if your prediction was correct with Michael Smith, or maybe it'll be one of the other 6 players that walks away with the Eric Bristow Trophy on Sunday. We're going to find out over the next 3 days, but there is still 3 more days of darts left in the Grand Slam. So as I always say, make sure you enjoy the darts.
I'm not even going to say my catchphrase because there is no time for that over the next few days. I'll say it again once we get to, the lead up a couple weeks to the World Championships. But I'm with you right now. Enjoy the darts.